Hello and welcome to the 24th installment of Aaron Walker Art Talk. I am still Aaron Walker, and I am still joined by Jerome Ramagosa. Jerome, how are you?
I am wholesome.
Wholesome. Today you have chosen Trump for Führer. Why did you choose that?
To me, it sort of summarized a lot of late 2016 and this presidential election being almost like a joke and a meme, and how that was sort of, this piece was, to me, some of like the extent of the political discourse that surrounded the election. Or at least, we would see from most of the internet, and even most conversations is revolved around things like Pepe, the wall, the nationalism, fascism, Hitler references, Trump's wealth, and his love of Mexican food. Love of Hispanics, as he calls them.
So this came about principally because I made one about Hillary during the election that was called Hillary for Death, which shows like all these different countries that were affected by her foreign policy while she was Secretary of State. And this one, and I brought that one to art markets, and I was like, I should even this out. Like, it's a good business decision for me to just play both sides. So I made this one as well. And I mean, you pretty much surmised it. It's just a collection of, it's a quick, what's the term I'm looking for? I will not be able to think of this word. It's just showing all these different elements of the campaign, of this person, of their policies, and of like this moment of history. So you have Pepe, you have what is actually like a mid-1940s German, but he has American flags instead of other symbols. And there's the wall. And I wanted it to look like the aesthetic sensibility was like a high school or like junior high school journal. That's why there's like these arts everywhere. Like I wanted it to be like someone's love, like letter to Donald Trump.
Oh my God.
Which is why it's called like Trump for Führer with like a 4 instead of a 4, F-O-R.
The graffiti font.
Yeah, because it's like a middle schooler like argument for Trump.
Yeah.
He loves Mexican people. He loves money and tacos.
Yeah.
Which I suppose was to some extent kind of the discourse at the time. Certainly, and I was also heavily involved with like 4chan at the time. Like I was really big on, because I think there is a study by a major university in the United States that talks about the effect of 4chan on the election, right? And apparently, like if 4chan wasn't a thing, Donald Trump wouldn't have gotten elected. So like all of these like 12 and 13-year-olds like made this man president.
That is, I know we disagree politically, but that is unfortunately not surprising to me.
Right. I think it's amazing. Like, it's incredible that these certainly I would assume that a filthy communist such as yourself would appreciate the democratization of politics, and that, everyone has a voice and everyone has the ability to affect things now because of the internet.
Oh, I agree. It's really interesting how the internet, especially over really as long as I've been able to vote. This was the first election the first presidential election that I was eligible to vote in. And just kind of growing up, seeing how different it was, but not really knowing anything else, because by the time I became, a political person in the world, the internet has been such a large part of, our generation's sort of political understanding, how they get information about this, how they voice their opinions, and to see and to learn that, the internet did have such a big effect, especially like 4chan of all places, this, what people call the toilet of the internet, and that it had, the underground internet had such a big impact on what is a major political move for the U.S. is very fascinating.
I agree.
Um,
Do you have any other questions about the piece?
I mean, aside from the obvious inclusion of Pepe, what were you trying to, I guess, say specifically about, or were you really trying to say anything at all about how the election became sort of like memeified, or Trump as a person is almost, some people would argue that Trump is a meme. He's a meme president, and the same for most political candidates of this past election, that people cared less about, in a lot of ways, their policies and more about this persona and these jokes on the internet. I don't know.
I mean, this is meant to be like, so the original title was Donald Trump Meme Brigade, right?
Oh, wow.
Like, because there's this conception of like the meme war, and that there are like veterans of the meme war, people who were involved in this information warfare online during this period of time. But also, in both this and the Hillary piece, I was meaning to portray them both negatively, right, in a negative light, so that someone who wanted to buy one of these, regardless of their political affiliation, would have something to go to, right? Yeah. And so he's like obviously overtly tan, like almost like unnecessarily. He has smoke coming out of his ears, and he has a halo that has like these breaking lines in it. And he also, I believe, has a little Hitler stash going.
Yeah, he does.
So
Sure.
I don't know. It certainly isn't entirely positive. Although, so the question specifically was, if you could repeat it, whether this was a commentary on memetics and like, well, kind of, because even like, what's the point of having like a Nazi soldier in American garb, right? I mean, this is like something that was kind of actively pushed on 4chan for a while, and is still actively pushed on 4chan, of like American fascism, of like quite literally calls to these kind of foreign histories in the United States. So they'll talk about like, there are people who want to like reinstate imperial Rome in the United States now, which actually makes more sense than Nazi Germany, because of course there was a long period of Americans using imperial Roman symbolism, like the fasces, like Roman architecture. Like America was in some sense founded with a Roman sensibility in mind, but certainly not with like, obviously it couldn't have been a National Socialist. That would be, the timeline doesn't quite match up, right? But I don't know, just like this weird historical juxtapositions that you see like on 4chan or on like alt-right Twitter, like basically, to some extent, yes, it is dealing with memetics, because these are the memes that were around at the time. So yes.
I think the flag and the armband with the American flag on it is particularly interesting, because there's been so much controversy about the American flag and about the national anthem, and sort of this whole sense of nationalism. And there's been a lot of discourse about it. And so for you to include that so prominently in this piece, I thought was like a very interesting choice.
Right. I'm not sure that necessarily is a commentary on nationalism in general. This certainly, I would not, I at least hope that this would be like an anti-nationalist piece in general. Certainly not like a commentary on like American patriotism, right? I think that you can make a hard delineation between someone who is on America's side, like both the side of the American people and perhaps the stability of the U.S. government, and someone who wants to like incorporate National Socialism into the American program, right?
Right. Well, and I think there's a difference between patriotism and especially hard nationalism, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was more of a libertarian figure, I would say something like, you can love your country and hate your government, right? That kind of banal line.
Right.
But I think, as I've kind of progressed, especially my understanding of geopolitics, it becomes difficult to really make that delineation where it's like, well, if I hate my government, I'm actively acting against it and acting against the stability of the state in the U.S., let's say, like understanding that Russia and China are superpowers that have billions of dollars, like just unimaginable resources to subvert the United States and its institutions, it becomes difficult for me to not say that like what's bad for the state is bad for people.
Right. It's interesting to note how different your views are from when I last talked to you, probably 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, when you came visit and you were an anti-statist.
No, I was a filthy ANCAP. I understand that. Like, and we'll talk more about this once the stream is off, because I don't, as much as I love going on tangents, this does have to end at some point, right? Actually, I guess now would be an adequate time, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, Jerome, thank you so much for coming on and for being in all of these episodes. I appreciate your commentary. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.